I was. I was in Riyadh last year. Cool. So I'm happy to be back here. Welcome. And I don't know why I should say it in Arabic, but and this is the Google APIs talk. So if you're here for a different talk, you should find it now. Okay, so my name is Ala Matthias Bittlingmeier. I came here from California, from Google headquarters in Mountain View. And you have seen this before, right? The hashtag. Okay. So, and where the presentations will be, where to give feedback as well. By the way, how many of you have been to other G Days? No? Okay. And how many of you are from Jeddah? And how many from Saudi in general? So, feel free to ask questions at any time. We have a microphone there. It's best to use the microphone. If you don't use the microphone, you need to speak loudly so everybody can hear you. And excuse my bad Arabic, of course. Okay, so the topic is Google APIs. Can I maybe have somebody tell me what you're expecting from Google APIs? What does it mean?
Yes.
Go ahead.
All of Google services. How to integrate them into our projects.
Right. So this is more of an overview. We can take it in different ways because there's too much to discuss here, even though we have 3 hours. And how many of you have your laptops with you today? Okay, about half. Cool. So it's great if some of, maybe you don't all do coding, but you can at least go to the URLs because we have live URLs up. How many of you have internet access here? Okay, cool, that's good. So we'll try to keep this interactive. Okay, so I'm going to start out right now, going to code.google.com/more. If you just Google APIs or something like that, you'll also find this page, right? But of course, you can get the presentation afterwards. So I'll go now to Chrome. Okay, so this is what should happen in all the URLs.
Wi-Fi.
So this is quite a long list, right, of different offerings. So that's why I say we won't do them all today. So if you guys had to choose, what are the Google APIs that you've heard of already? What sort of services do we have for developers like you? Pardon? So, let's see. So, has anybody here heard of the Google Maps API? Yes. App Engine? How many have heard of App Engine? Okay, not very many. Okay, so I'm going to mostly be talking about Google App Engine, and then we put everything else on top of this. So Google App Engine is a cloud service. How many of you know that Google has data centers? Okay. Pardon? Yeah, it's public. Yeah, so so the idea here is, from all of these, I just want to pick the 4 that I think are coolest for me. That's Google App Engine, Google YouTube, I think is cool. Google Maps, I think is cool. Google Plus, I think is cool. And Google Translate, which is what I work on. I think is cool. Okay, so the reason I start with App Engine is that App Engine is a platform similar to what Amazon has, cloud services, which let you put your app in the cloud. So that means, now here you're a very developed country, so you have good connection, but let's say I'm working from a tropical island on vacation, and in the old days maybe I had a little, like a Windows machine under my desk there on this tropical island, and I work, and then I update the server, and then at some point, you know, like a ship goes by and it cuts the line to the island, and now there's no internet, and then people who are accessing my site cannot find my site anymore, something like that. And it was always slow for them because it was hitting they were coming from somewhere far away. Let's say I have customers in China, now it goes over the internet to my little tropical island, and it's just my one little machine under my desk. It's really, really slow, right? So the idea with App Engine is you don't run any servers. You just upload your code to Google's data centers. It runs there. So Google has data centers all over the place, right? So there's one that's closer to the Middle East, so that it's faster for you. When I access Gmail in California, it's reading it from a different place. When I access Gmail from Jeddah, it's probably going to Europe because Europe and the Middle East are very close together. So Netherlands, I think. Yeah? And so the idea is your code runs in the same data centers as Google code does, and it will have the same level of reliability too, meaning that let's say somebody DOS attacks your site. We all know what a DOS attack is? Okay, denial of service attack, right? And it's not theoretical, it happens all the time. You don't even know why it happens. It could be an unrelated reason. I'll give you an example. There was a Georgian blogger who said something about a place called Abkhazia where there's a conflict, and some Russian hackers attacked his site on just his Facebook page, not all of Facebook, but his Facebook page. This was about 2 years ago. What happened? All of Facebook went down for a day. If you remember, that happened about 2 years ago. You can read in the news about that. So, other users, their site went down. Blogger, which is owned and powered by Google, did not go down. Just his page went down. Right? So it's very robust against this sort of attacks. And if your app is running on App Engine, it will be that same sort of robustness or strength. Right? So here I'm going. Sorry. Does anybody have any questions about Google App Engine before we jump into the App Engine part of the workshop? Okay. Maybe could somebody explain what App Engine is in Arabic for everybody? Like just somebody, or explain it in English, just like so that I'm sure that I explained it well. By the way, where have I seen you before? Where? Ah, okay. I knew I've seen you before. 1 year ago exactly. Cool. Okay, so maybe I didn't explain it well. Okay, so hopefully then through the demo it becomes more clear. So here I'm going to click here on Google App Engine. So it says run your web applications on Google's infrastructure. Okay, so we're going to do just that. So in this case, I just go here, I download the App Engine SDK, which is this little jet engine, right? So that's this is just a development environment. I go to the developer's guide, I got the Python one in my case, and so I downloaded it, and now I'm going to jump in the tutorial here. I'm going to jump not to introduction, but I'll just go to using the data store. So the cool part here is this. Right now, we're going to have an app where the data is actually going to a Google data center from this room right now. All right, and I just went to this website this morning. Do this, very simple, right? And it goes there. So the idea here is that this is the example is a guest book app. So I just want to have an app where any one of you could go there and say, hi, greetings from GSAUDI 2.0 or whatever, and it just adds like that. And this is, then I close my browser and it's still, yeah, go ahead.
Just a question. Is it always should be a web app or an app special for me that defines an app?
Right, so the question is it just a web app or is it some other kind of app? So basically it's just a web app. As far as whether it could be restricted to you in the sense that you could set it up so that only you have access to it. You could put it behind any sort of security. But go ahead.
You can use the app in other browser, like Firefox.
Yeah, any browser, yeah. Was there another question?
So you have to develop in Python or?
No, so that's a good question. Sorry, I should not have skipped that. So basically here you see there are three, actually sorry, well really three languages, right? There's Java, Python, and Go. Does anybody know what Go is? Go ahead.
It's a new language created by Google.
Yes. I owe you a mug. So, did they say? Anybody who answers difficult questions gets a mug. So if I can find a mug, you can come talk to me about it. So, okay, so Go. Now, how many people here use Java? So, and Python? And what are the other major languages that you guys are using? So I started I learned C++ in school. I do mostly Java at work, a little bit of Python. I do Python here for the demo because I think Python is actually the most simple. It's just, you don't need an IDE or anything. And I do a lot of JavaScript at work too. So, and then the question is, can you use something like Django? How many people here use Django? Okay, not too many then. And the answer is basically yes, you can use other frameworks on top of this because this is a very free platform. You just upload your Python or Java or Go, which talks to these APIs, but you could put any other thing on top of it. Any sort of HTML stuff, JavaScript stuff. Okay, so we want to use the data store here. We created our basic app, and it's so what we've downloaded, just from the example, very, very simple. There's an app.yaml, which just looks like this. And it says, basically, the name of my app, which I want to sell automobiles to the Emirates and make a ton of money. So it's Emirates Automobiles. Right now it's version 5, but it would have started at version 1. I said it's in Python. And the other stuff is just all stolen, right? So it's all stolen from the tutorial right here, right? So I just have this using the data store. So I just take this code here, all this guestbook stuff, and this is the Python. So what the Python here is doing is writing the HTML. So every time this Python is running in the Google Data Center, when somebody requests my app, just the homepage of my app, the Python actually generates, I hope you can see this. The Python actually generates the HTML tags. So this is what makes it dynamic, right? So we could say something like, so here we have guestbook name, but let's say we have a greeting. But now let's say I wanted to make it random. Maybe half the time it says hello, and half the time it says how are you. Right? You just write it in here, and it's gonna spit out the HTML dynamically. There's no HTML file yet. You can do it, but in the simple example, we don't. Okay, so we go out here. So I'll go to here, and I'll just let me show you. Sorry. So what I did here was I registered my name, sort of like when you make a Gmail account. You see if it's free, and that's where I got emiratesautomobiles.com. Right. So now I'm going to go out. How do I exit presentation mode? Okay. So now I have that directory here in the desktop. I have next to my BitTorrent directory. Right, these are the files. Most of these are generated files. Really, the only files in here were the app.yaml and the app.py to begin with. Just those two files. Then you see the different versions, and then the index.yaml was generated when I asked it to run. So basically, all I do here, if I say run, it gets deployed locally. I go to localhost port 8080, and I see my simple app running, and then fix the zoom here. And then I just click deploy, and now it's going to push it, right? So something like this. Just saying, okay, it's going, it's going. It's checking. Luckily we have internet. Most of the conferences we don't have internet. Deployment successful, right? Okay. So now I go back to my browser and see which camera I have here. This is the dashboard of the app. Here's the local host, right? So that's what it looks like locally. Now you see already some Egyptian guys have made their comments to the guest book here, and then I'll go here to. I initially started at version 1, so whatever version I give it comes before there for now. Of course, in the future we want the nice URL without the 1 before it, but for now we have this, we're developing. And you can go to this URL right now and make some comments. Right? And in fact, I encourage you to. If you do it, you get a mug, but you have to put, somehow I have to know that it's you, so you maybe, I don't know how you do it. Maybe your name. Okay, so, and I'll now do a page source, right? And you see here, there's no Python, right? It's just the dynamic product, the dynamically generated product of the Python. So, does anybody have questions about that? Go ahead. So that will be in the next steps, yeah. So we'll use some sort of templating because this sort of writing out Python and spitting out tags is not very scalable. It doesn't work very well for a complicated app. Okay, so I also grabbed the YouTube username Emirates Automobiles. So I'm trying to grab it, right? If you look here at my Gmail account up top, I also grabbed it, this one here. All right, so I'm trying to make a full business out of this. And so then I want to take the next step. I want to check, let's say, how much users I'm getting. So I go here, also to the App Engine dashboard, and I can see all of this stuff. I can see how much it's costing. You get a free quota, which is very generous, but if you ever became really successful, then you'll have to start paying a little bit. And so then you would be able to say, either cap it, so you don't want to pay, so you're going to cap it, or you're going to see how much usage you're getting, how you could maybe change your app to save money, so on. Right? So in this case, I want to add YouTube videos to my site. I want to make it, right now it's really boring, right? You agree? It's a pretty boring site. And now I'm curious too, if anybody, I'm gonna refresh. Oh, come on, now you made a comment. Pardon? Oh, it's at the top. You're right. Okay. Most recent. Thank you. So the next thing, let me close that. Right, so I added a few YouTube videos, just very simple, just like this. Make it a little bit richer. So YouTube API is another one. Does anybody know some of the things you can do with the YouTube API? So you can, for example, style the video in any way that you want, style the player, put custom play buttons, all sorts of stuff like that, and make it fit the styling of your site, right? So this is like the most simple API. Next thing is, and I'll just show you how that looks in here. So here, I just simply, from the YouTube API site, just simply grab those URLs. And for example, here I just specified the URL and I just put those in. Right? This is nothing, this is beneath you guys, but anyway, YouTube always looks cool, so we put it. So, next thing here is the +1 button. Right? So, you're all familiar with the +1 button? Okay. So, how many of you are on Google Plus? Okay, so it's pretty popular, at least among software engineers in Saudi. Okay, so probably in your site you want to have +1 button and Facebook button and everything else, right? So, and for some of these widgets like this, we have the a wizard. So you can just say, okay, I want small, I want standard, specify everything, and you see as I change it, the options are changing here. So it's super simple, right? You're just gonna grab it, copy, paste, put it into your site, and now I have the +1 button here, and 4 people have already +1 this, right? So it's a way to increase the business of your site. Does anybody have any questions about the +1 button?
Is there any way we can change the image to the plus button itself while we're using it?
So in which way would you want to change it?
We want to brand it to our website, different color.
The thing is that the idea of, so we usually discourage, so the question is there any way that you can change the branding of the +1 button? And in fact, we usually discourage changing of the branding for 2 reasons. In some of the cases, like YouTube or something, if you don't acknowledge that it's YouTube, then like what does Google get from it, right? We get no credit, which we're kind of fine with that. But then, because we might get other things like, let's say, I don't know, if you have your YouTube videos for your business, you know, you might be driving YouTube traffic in other times with the ad shows or something. But the other thing is that it's not really great for users if they don't know what they're clicking on. So, you know, let's say this is a horrible site. It has something you don't agree with, and now you change the button and it says, I hate this site. I think it should be taken off the internet. And now somebody comes to your site, they don't like the site, and they click like -1, and then it actually +1'd it. And now his mom saw that he +1'd it, and she clicked on it, and then it's this horrible site. Right? So it's misleading to users if you change the buttons on them. So you'll see that because there's a number of APIs here, and this question comes up again and again because people, they want to do it for good reasons usually. They want to give it a little bit of, maybe our styling isn't that cool, or let's say the background of your website is all black. Maybe then the part here that's white should be black to match the rest of it. There are good reasons to do it, but for that reason, we don't encourage it and we make it difficult for you to do. Okay, so in this case, I just grabbed this, I threw it in, I have the +1 button, view page source, right? And I really is very, very small if I don't add any of the custom options, right? It's like this much code. So it's very, very simple, and I want to encourage you to do it. Okay, so the next thing is, so I'll go to the version section of my app here. So right now, we've made 3 versions. Right, so every time I did something, sorry, this is very small, but what it says at the beginning there is 3.emiratesautomobiles.appspot.com. So what I did at the beginning there is every time I made a change, I incremented the version. If we go back to the app.yaml, so like by this time I'm at version 5, but at that time I was at version 3, and now it went up at version 3. And now I want to say, okay, so right now version 1 is the live version. If I go to my dashboard, right? So if I just, what it means for it to be live with the button, radio button next to it, means that if they just go to Emirates Automobiles with no number, it's going to go to that one. And in fact, if you go right now, right, you'll see you'll see that one. Whereas if you go to 5, then you would be cheating and you would be going ahead and seeing what we're going to do in the future. Okay, so now let's say I change it, I make it the default, and now that one's a live version. And what's the benefit of this system? Any guesses? Go ahead.
What
Exactly. So exactly what he said. You can manage what the user will see. So you can try experiments. Let's say you want to have a QA cycle. So you release the next version. You have your QA go look at it. You don't have to have it for. You can have put something very like a long hash, so it's super secret. Nobody can find it. They go test it, make sure that the next version is good, and then you set it live. And then users are going to just the main website the whole time, and all of a sudden they see an update. What?
app entry, and create
You said WebGL, right? Yeah. But I guess the question is, what would be the benefit of doing that versus using this version?
the cycle is going to change maybe some parts of the application and have different versions and show different
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's totally possible because you basically can run arbitrary HTML and JavaScript in there. And in fact, so we do that a lot at Google. We run experiments like that. We call them usually 1% experiments. So maybe we show 1% of users the new UI. We put JavaScript around, just click tracking to see, do they like this new button? Do they use this feature more now that we changed the style of it? So yeah, that's a very good question. If you have, especially if you have a lot of users, you can do that. If you have a low volume, it's tough.
How did you develop that? So that users can use different versions of it?
It's basically random, so it's by their cookie ID. So your cookie is a long hash, so you just say, okay, you know, do like what's it called? Sorry. Wait, in math, when you divide the remainder, modulo, right? So you just take the modulo and then of whatever the hash is, and then you can, you know, put it into 100 buckets and you go, okay, this one, they get this new UI, right? So just completely random. And we usually do that sort of at the outermost level of the server so that it doesn't interfere with the code. Okay, and then you might be wondering what are some of the other things here. So let's say you have this guest book, and now you want to run some analysis on it. So let's say there's a Google Translate language identification API. So I want to say, okay, how many of the guest book entries were in Arabic? How many of the guest book entries were in English? And maybe then I can like target sales to this region or that region, right? So I want to run this sort of job, right? So up till now, I've only been showing you what to do when somebody makes a request and how you answer that request. But sometimes we want to have an offline process run. So App Engine offers you the ability to do that on Google data centers as well. So that's why there's cron jobs and task queues and things like that, right? So can anybody give another example of a job that you might want to run in an offline fashion? Pardon? Web crawler. So, do you think the Google's web crawler runs offline or online? Sort of all the time, continuously, or once in a while, periodically?
Now I think it's now.
Exactly. So it used to be that it was periodic, like once a month, and now it's running all the time, and still it can't keep up with the amount of new stuff on the web. So they give priority to the certain sites, right? So if you as a webmaster, you say, okay, please crawl my site now, But let's say when CNN makes an update, if you go to Google like a minute later, you can, if you enter the words of the new content that they put, it's already indexed, right? So CNN is being crawled all the time. So that's another benefit of App Engine. If you're on a high quality domain, they know this is trusted content, it's really a Google URL, and so they're gonna crawl you all the time. So you won't be waiting for a month or something for your site to get an index. And you won't have to do anything special either, right? If you're a, does anybody know how the crawling works? Where does it start?
Robots.txt,
So, right, so the robots.txt affects it, but
meta tags.
it's basically this link, this series of links. So in the old days, they started at yahoo.com and the whole internet was somehow connected like this, and they would just go from this link to this link to this link and branch out. So if you just, pardon?
You mean PageRank?
No, well, ignoring PageRank, it's calculated in there too with the direction of the links, but basically you just follow those, right? So in essence, what you could have is you just bring up a new website. How will Google find you? They don't know. You just did it at abcdefg.com. How would they ever find that? Because you can't check all of the possible URLs all the time, right? So then you would have to go register with them and say, hey, because nobody's pointing to you yet, unless you go make yourself famous somehow. And so that's what goes on here. When you just create this app, you're basically automatically registering, right? Google already knows you're there, so they're already going to put you in. So again and again, when you use a platform like this, you don't have to worry about, let's say, login. You could use the authentication system that's here. You can use, you have, as I mentioned, sort of the strength against the DOS attack. You have this better indexing. And you have things like image fetch APIs. So if you want to go fetch images, so there's quite a few different services to happen, right? But there's just to show you some of the things. So you can make, you can send mail, send email. So all of these things, it makes it really easy. 1 or 2 lines of code. So, any other questions? Okay, so I guess we're at version 3 right now. We have the +1 button. So now I wanted to add in Google Translate here. So, all of you have used Google Translate? Yes? Okay. Arabic to English is a little not so great? Okay. I'm even afraid to use it, to demo it. But, so I work on Google Translate, as I mentioned, and specifically on the developer-facing APIs, right? We want people like you to take advantage. So, in this case, my website has really taken off. So I want to add in some translation capability. So I don't right now, you know, I don't know Arabic, I don't know Russian, etc. But these are big markets, right? With so many cars here, and I have a cars website, so I have to sell cars to these, you know, in Chinese, Russian, and Arabic because it's growing really fast. Okay, so I just clicked down here, the website translator. Okay, it's right there, and then I want to translate the entire web page. Otherwise, I could add section-specific translation. Now, why would I want to do section-specific translation? So, let's say you have, thank you. Let's say you have something like YouTube, and it's in, like, the site is only for the Arabic market, so the whole page is in Arabic, and then there's a guest book section here, and people are leaving comments under it, and you want the user to always see it in his language. You don't need to translate, you know, where it says log out. You need to translate each little comment section, right? So there are a lot of cases like that where you want more specific control. Does anybody know about Gmail message translation? Yeah? So it was just turned on, it was a labs feature and now it's been, it will be turned on. And so the idea here is that you just translate this message, right? Gmail just wants to translate the message. They don't want to translate the whole, all of your chat buddies and the top here. You just want to translate the message. So you apply this to a specific section. But in our case, we want to do it for the whole page. Now we have some optional settings. So you can do it for all languages, but then the menu is really, really long, right? Because does anybody know roughly how many languages Google Translate handles?
About 30. 60.
Yes. Who said 60? Was it a guess or? So it's about 60 right now. We have two categories of languages. We have the standard ones, and then we have alpha languages. Does anybody know what alpha languages are? So I heard dialects. That's not the case. Alpha languages, pardon?
Only within the country or only within certain countries?
No, alpha languages are very new languages for which we don't have enough data. Right? So something like Telugu. Did I hear that? Urdu is an alpha language, yes. So there's not enough web data. So basically the quality that we can provide increases with the amount of data we have, right? So Arabic is sort of in the middle, but we like to increase it because in the world, Arabic is a very big language. There's just a lot of issues with the right to left and different word order, and English has a relatively poor, you don't have a word that changes a lot, right? You just, basically you add S, and now it's plural, but in Arabic it could change in the middle of the word and stuff like that, right? So the system was built around English, and you have those problems. The other issue is lack of quality Arabic data, which I think is improving, but I think it's on you, on your generation, and people here to increase the amount of quality Arabic data. So in this case, go ahead. Okay, so in this case, we'll just put specific languages in the menu. I know German, I know English, you all know Arabic. I know there's some more in here. So you see, as I added it, it's just getting added right there. Right, so I don't even have to do anything. Any others? Korean? More? Okay. Simplified or traditional? Simplified. Okay. So now somebody had mentioned about dialects. The idea with the dialects is we basically, the Chinese is an exception, but we basically always try to accept a broad range. So let's say they announced now that Saudi dialect is now supported for voice input, right? And so the idea is we try to be very tolerant when we listen and when you put in data, but when we put it out, then we always try to go for the standard, for the Fusha and the Arabic case. For whatever reason, in English, we made the arbitrary decision that we always put out the American English instead of the British English. So we always put out one, but we accept all of them when we take it in. So that's sort of how it works with the dialects. Okay, so then you also have a choice of how you want it to look exactly. Right, so I don't know. I think that this one is the best. You have also, you can have it at the bottom of the page. And now automatic means that nothing will be there unless it detects that the user's browser is a different language than the language of your site. So if it's a site in Arabic and they have everything, their computer and browser, etc., set up in Arabic, it's not going to show them, hey, translate this. Right? It's just going to do it. So for inline, I think this one looks old to me. So they all they could be better, but So then there's the question of whether to automatically do it, right? So if they come, the language of the browser is not the language of the site, should they be able to do it, or should it just automatically detect, right? So in this case, I'm for the detection. And then this is also a tricky thing. If your page contains content in more than one language, right? Because you give a clue to Google how to handle this, because it's a little bit difficult if it's expecting everything in one language and then it goes through and it's actually a mix, which is very common on the web. And then, how many of you know what Google Analytics is? Wow, actually quite a lot of people. So if you have an Analytics ID, you can just plug it in here, and then you'll see how many people are looking at my page and translating it to Chinese, how many people are translating it to Arabic, etc. And maybe you can focus your resources more on that market, or who knows, expand there, do ads for that market on Google and drive more traffic to your site. Right? So this is kind of a useful feature, because if you just have like country-specific data, right? In Jeddah you have people speaking 100 languages, and you don't really know, okay, which market should I be going for? Just because the IPs were coming from there. Okay, so now we're just going to grab this and paste it in, right? Very, very simple. So to sort of repeat, right? Go here. Right. So that in this case, you see exactly what I pasted it in right here in my page. And then I went here, I clicked deploy. I'm at version 5 now, so I won't really click deploy. But so I deployed this, and then now so it's version 4, and now I have this here, right? And these are the languages that I had selected. Okay, so this is probably horrible translation. Don't throw anything at me. Okay, so the next thing I want to do, let's see, how are we on time? We can go till 1, is that correct? Okay. Okay, so the next thing we have here, and are there any more questions about the translate stuff? Go ahead. For misspellings in the translation. Okay, so there's something called the translator toolkit, and Tayyip Owais, who did all the localization of Arabic, he'll be talking about that today at 5. He's the expert, right? He did it for Google Plus pretty much by himself, etc. So we've gotten better now with his help at releasing the products already localized. But so that's a very good question. All I can say is there will be more simple ways to do it in here in the future, but right now he'll give you the very detailed talk for the very professional level for people who are interested in making those tweaks. And we totally understand that making those tweaks is necessary for somebody running a business, especially let's say you have Apple and Apple is getting translated as Apple. Apple won't want that on their site. So. Yeah, but sorry, I can't provide more specifics. He's really the expert, so. And he'll also be at the demo class, and I'll be there with him to talk about the corrections. Now, just to mention that, because the idea of making corrections, getting user feedback is so important to any artificial intelligence system. I just want to mention, let's say that, it won't take me long to find a wrong translation. Is that correct? Okay. Is that correct? Oh, come on, we can find a bad one. That can't be correct. Okay, so what you can do here is reorder it, right? So I hold shift. Let's say like maybe it just said red apple and didn't say the Hamra after apple, or like, right? I am sorry, but I know a few things, but reading, not at all, right? So, okay, and then you can even see suggestions, right? So maybe this wasn't the right translation, so you can select it. So we pay attention to all those things, and we appreciate these feedbacks, right? Any other questions about Translate before we jump into another set of APIs? Go ahead.
The translation automatically without having the user click or select from the drop-down.
Oh, so
I serve my website, I say I have a link at the top that says English, for example.
right,
And when we press it, it will be automatically translated using the translator.
right. You're saying,
This level of I have to use the APIs for that.
so you want a separate, you want a separate button here that says English?
Yeah, yes.
Kind of like Al Jazeera has like at the top?
Yeah, oh yeah, within my design.
Okay, so I think we may offer something like this, or we can look into it, and we're thinking about it, but for that styling reason that I talked about earlier, we want to give users a very consistent feel so that just like when you see +1 button or Facebook button, you know, okay, this is how I translate a site, so let's say I'm on a new site, I just know. So there's not really a way right now to do that because it would be, you would just be putting English and Arabic, and you could put anything. So right now there's not a good way to do it, except you can create your own link. And so if I, okay, I'll show you this.